Hi, humans. I was asked recently if I had any tips or hints on how to get rid of stress. A lot of people get into meditation these days specifically because they think it's going to reduce their stress. In fact, there's a whole school of meditation instruction called mindfulness-based stress reduction. Now, I don't know anything about mindfulness-based I can't even say it. I don't know anything about mindfulness-based stress reduction. So I want to address not that, but what Zen practice does in terms of stress reduction. Now, most people, when they think of doing something that reduces stress, have in mind, I think, a kind of medical model. They think of it the way you'd think of a pill. You know, you take a pill, boom, boom, and 10 minutes later, your stress is gone. Now, anybody who's tried pills that are supposed to do that or any other medications, especially the kind of medications they have here in the West Coast that are supposed to reduce stress, and you know the kind I mean if you live out here, you find that they come with side effects. For example, let's just call the pot black or kettle white or whatever it is. Marijuana is a big thing out here in California that's often prescribed for stress reduction. Now, if you smoke a joint, you generally reduce your stress. But the side effects are that you become kind of loopy and dopey, and there isn't a whole lot of other things you can do in life. You become a little unproductive, and so it's not the best way to reduce stress, especially if you want to reduce stress at the workplace. Because if you're high all the time, you're not going to get anything done. Prescription medications are a little bit more refined than that, but they generally have the same sort of problem. There's some kind of side effect. So people get into meditation because they think they're going to reduce their stress with no side effects. Now, that can happen. The problem is it doesn't happen usually in quite the way people want it to happen. Like they want to well, let's forget the pill and the joint. They want to take their meditation position, do their meditation practice for half an hour, and then emerge stress-free. That isn't usually what happens. But what happens is that you become more aware of what things in life are causing you stress. Then it becomes incumbent upon you to do something about that. Either stop doing those things or figure out a different way to do those things, or continue doing those things and accept that they cause you stress. And those are about the only three choices you have. Now, you might think, well, why not just get my handy-dandy notebook, and write down things that cause me stress, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then go, okay, here's the things I can eliminate, and here's what I can't, and I'll do that. That might work. But the problem with that approach is that that's only going to turn up the things that you understand as stress causers. You might understand that working a 70-hour work week is causing you stress, or having a lousy boss is causing you stress, or having a bad relationship is causing you stress, and so on and so forth. You might be able to consciously be aware of that. What the Zen practice does is kind of allows you to get an idea of what sort of unconscious things are causing you stress, or what sort of things you're doing that you probably don't realize are stressful might actually be stressful. So for me, it worked like that. I started to understand that certain things I did rather casually, or rather without thinking about them, were causing me stress. Certain habits of thought, certain kinds of things I would do, the way I would sort of frame things for myself in my mind when things happened, that sort of thing, those were causing me stress. And they were habits. And I also understood that I could break those habits by not doing them. Now, a habit is a difficult thing to root out often because it's habitual, It's a bit like an addiction. So it's as if you have an addiction to a certain way of thinking about things, and you have to say, okay, I'm not going to think about things that way. Now, if you do that, it's a little iffy. What you learn to do with Zen practice is not so much to make those thoughts stop or to change those thoughts, but to realize you can let them go. That any thought you have doesn't necessarily mean it's true. I think we believe this stuff without thinking. We tend to believe our own thoughts must be correct, but our own thoughts are often incorrect. So understanding that your thoughts are incorrect and understanding that you are not your thoughts, that you are not obligated to believe your own thoughts, can be tremendously helpful. So in this way, you can first learn that there are things you're doing right now that are causing you stress, and that if you stop these things, you stop the stress. So you just have to notice what these things are and stop them. There are certain other things which you're not going to be able to change that easily, because maybe you have a certain job and you have a certain boss, and it's not really an option to quit that job and get another one. And besides, if you did that, you might just end up in the same situation again, because you never know. So in that case, finding different ways of framing things is helpful. I'll give you one concrete example that was really useful. When I worked for Tsuburaya Productions, I had two bosses, one of whom I got along fairly well with. He was an old guy, and even though we didn't always see eye to eye, he was pretty easy to deal with. Then I had another boss who was under him, who was about my age and had wildly different ways of understanding what it is we're doing at this company and how to do them. So I used to butt heads with that guy a lot. And after a particular Zen retreat, don't remember when, don't remember exactly how it happened, I walked into the office the day after the retreat was over, and I looked at him, and I realized, oh, that's me. Now, I don't mean that I saw my face superimposed on his body or anything freaky like that, but I saw that my resistance to him was my own problem, and I could find a different way of dealing with him than constantly resisting him. This is why I kind of take exception to this idea of the resistance when it comes to Trump, because resistance just causes other resistance, and it just goes back and forth like this. But if you find a way to not resist, but also not give in, you can find a way to cooperate. Because what you'll find is that most people have pretty much the same sort of wants and needs. They just have different understandings about how those should be taken care of. And your way of understanding it isn't necessarily the right way, any more than their way of understanding it is the right way. But if you're both insisting on my way is the right way all the time, you'll never get anywhere. So I found that there was a way to work with this person cooperatively while also putting in my way of understanding things in such a fashion that it didn't become resistance so much as cooperation. Now that's one example. In this way, I was able to reduce stress considerably by simply, for one, not doing things that caused me stress, modifying the way I did things that caused me stress, or the third way is accepting that stress was inevitable in certain situations. But there you find that the situations in which stress is unavoidable are not as common as you think they are, or as you might think they are. Some of us go through life thinking everything we're encountering is stressful, but that's a kind of a frame of mind. You can switch that frame of mind by looking at it clearly and refusing to believe it, refusing to believe your own characterization of events. That's the advice I have for reducing stress. I know it's probably not the advice you were hoping for, but these are the things that have worked for me. I don't claim I am 100% stress-free, but I am certainly a hell of a lot less stressed than I used to be when I started this practice, and for that I am extremely grateful. So, there you go. How to Reduce Stress by Brad. Thank you. Enjoy your life.